Hey guys, I'm Calluna, and welcome back to Screenshots. So, lately, to pass the time, I've been watching Sailor Moon Crystal, the new Sailor Moon anime that's been putting out episodes since around July or so. If you guys didn't know already, Viz Media actually acquired the rights to the old Sailor Moon anime, and have been slowly recording the episodes with a brand new voice cast. They keep the original Japanese names, they don't cut or alter any of the episodes, and overall are doing an excellent job of bringing an old anime to a new generation of anime viewers. So it got me thinking, are there other anime that should be redubbed? There are plenty of anime from the past that don't really have a great dub, but does that necessarily mean that they could qualify to get a redub? That's what I'm going to be talking about today. I'm going to be breaking down what exactly could cause an anime from the past to be redubbed now. So what I've done is broken down a list of criteria that could make it possible for an anime to be redubbed. I've broken it down into 4 major categories. Number 1. Was the anime altered or cut down in any way? 2. Was the anime not finished? 3. Was the voice work poor? 4. Will it make money? I'm going to take a closer look at these criteria and provide some examples of what might fall into this category. Was the anime altered or cut down in any way? Back in the day, a lot of anime episodes were either cut or altered for a variety of reasons. Studios wouldn't allow an episode of an anime to air if it contained anything that they considered to be uncomfortable content, and it was usually up to the studios to deem what was inappropriate. This could vary from excessive violence to sexual or suggestive themes, and unfortunately, even homosexual relationships. One of the most infamous examples of this is from Sailor Moon, where Sailor Uranus and Sailor Neptune, who are clearly in a romantic relationship, were changed from lovers to cousins.
But the look in my cousin's eyes was so intense, so full of knowledge greater than I could imagine, that I was even more afraid. I knew if I stopped running now, there'd be no escape.
Cousins. Ugh. Several episodes were dramatically altered in the scripts. Well, yeah. Those were kind of shredded. Not that they got rid of the heavily suggestive music or anything, no.
How come you gave the fish away to that little kid?
We don't have time for a pet, Amara. He'd be lonely.
This wasn't anything particularly new to the time, unfortunately. Cardcaptor Sakura, which features a lot of same-sex couples or people being interested in pursuing a same-sex relationship, were all cut or written out of the English scripts. One of the most interesting and complex relationships from the series is completely eliminated, the relationship between Sakura's brother Toya and his best friend Yukito. One example of this is when Sakura confesses her love for Yukito to him. He gently lets her down by explaining that he loves Toya. The dub changes it to Sakura feeling guilty about her brother having to give up his magic to save Yukito's true self, Yue, from fading away. It's a clamp story, don't worry.
Sakura-chanが子供だと思ってはぐらかしてるんじゃないよ。
はい。ユキトさんはずっと分かってたんですか？
さくらちゃんは僕を家族みたいに考えてくれてるんだなってすごく嬉しかった。
ユキトさんにも一番好きな人がいるから分かったんですか？
そうだね。
お兄ちゃんですか？
うん、そうだよ。僕はトーヤがいなかったらもうここにはいなかっただろうから。
Yue has been at full strength and will be able to protect you now, Sakura.
True. Will Tori start to feel better soon, Julian?
Yeah, he should be feeling back to his normal self in a few days or so. Don't you worry, okay?
I just feel like somehow it's all my fault that Tori gave up his powers.
You shouldn't.
I can't help it.
But you... Sakura, you know, all Tori wants for you is to make sure that you're safe and secure.
Now, it's one thing for an anime to be altered so it's less violent. Dragon Ball Z often removed blood from a lot of fight scenes to make it appear less violent, or if a character's outfit is altered to hide something that was kind of more revealing. My Valentine's trademark Harpy cards have a significantly more revealing outfit in the Japanese version. Shows that were directed towards a younger audience were often the ones that were hit the most with these kinds of changes, like this example from Digimon Season 1.
いやー、見つかってしまいましたか。
何？
こちらの世界は思ったより楽しくて。 つい酔っ払ってしまったんです。
なんだお前もか。そんなことしてるとパンプモンやゴツモンのように消されてしまうぞ。いや
パンデモン様にはくれぐれも内密にね。
まったくテイルモンの仲間と来たらテクノボばっかりだ。
All right, but if I show you, you have to promise not to tell anyone.
Come on, show me!
All right, it's a bottle of green chili sauce. It's great on tacos.
What are you doing eating on the job when there's work to be done? You should be looking for the 8th Destined Child like the others.
Please don't tell Lord Myotismon. Why don't you get rid of this for me?
All right, boy, you know what I hope? I hope that the all-night drive-thru is still open.
Changes like these are mostly cosmetic, and they don't really have a significant impact on the show's plot or characters. However, it's when an anime studio goes out of its way to change major parts of the show that it really starts to become a problem. Sometimes studios make odd decisions entirely on their own, regardless of the content they are working with. Vision of Escaflowne suffered from poor marketing and decision-making. The English version of the show toned down a lot of the plot to make it more kid-friendly, removing a lot of the harsher dialogue, watering down the romance bits, and ignoring a lot of the death and war. And while that would be bad enough, the thing that they did that was worse was downplaying the role of the lead character, Hitomi, and tried to promote Van, a supporting character, as more of the hero. By doing that, the studio was effectively saying that Hitomi wasn't an interesting enough character to take the lead in the show, which I think is a huge mistake. That, and they were also trying to market the show to boys, so of course we can't have a show for boys with a girl as the lead character, no.
I'm the Avatar! You gotta deal with it!
For the most part, I would prefer if a dub remains faithful to the original Japanese anime, but there are a few exceptions to this. The anime Ghost Stories is a prime example of this. This is a rather infamous dub, where ADV Films kept the majority of the story and plot intact, but changed a majority of the dialogue to make it more comedic. According to voice actor Greg Ayres, Aniplex told ADV Films that the show wasn't very good and that the dub had free reign with the dubbing. So there were a lot of ad-libbed funny lines, inappropriate jokes ranging from religion to sexuality to politics.
You're such brave, strong, handsome men. Have you accepted Jesus as your personal savior?
No, I'm Jewish.
There's nothing to be afraid of, Pichu. Monsters only get evil people like Republicans, and we're not old enough to vote. I want a huge allowance in breasts when I get older.
And when I get older, I want to fondle said breasts.
And overall, just kind of went balls to the wall with it. The reason this is an exception, then, is because the original anime is kind of dull and not very good to start, and the dub actually made it a much more superior anime than it originally was. So, this is kind of an exception to the altered anime view because, well, it does a good job with what it had.
Not to mention all the hours and hours this very handsome personal trainer has spent helping the little dweeb. If you won't think of him, then consider all the Halo playing and monkey spanking I've sacrificed!
So yeah, if an anime was significantly altered or cut in its original dub, I would say it's definitely a contender for a potential redub. Examples that I would give are The Vision of Escaflowne and Cardcaptor Sakura. These are both really good anime that I think deserve another chance at a second dub. Was the anime not finished? Sometimes, for one reason or another, an anime dub doesn't get finished, and then there are a lot of remaining episodes that never make it over here. One example of something that can go wrong is if the studio ends up losing money or closing down. The anime When They Cry, or in Japanese, Higurashi no Naku Koroni, was an anime that was originally licensed by Geneon, but when Geneon went out of business, the rights to Higurashi were transferred to Funimation. Although the first season was finished and distributed, the remaining seasons were never touched. This is also supposedly due to poor sales. Season 2, Higurashi no Naku Koroni Kai, serves as the answer arc to Season 1's question arc. The mysteries that occur in Season 1 are explained in the second season and serve as a conclusion to the story. Anyone who is a fan of the first season needed to seek out Season 2 online in order to find out what happened. The popular sports anime Eyeshield 21 was supposed to have a longer dub initially. Viz Media and Cartoon Network were planning to have it be streamed through Toonami Jetstream, as well as on the NFL Rush site in joint effort with the NFL. But for whatever reason, the deal with the Rush site fell through, and only a few episodes were dubbed and appeared on Jetstream before it too was removed. It is exceedingly difficult to find those dubbed episodes now. Although streaming sites do have the original episodes with subtitles available for watching, this show is definitely solid enough that it could get a redub. In most cases with anime that aren't finished, it seems to be usually due to an issue with money. Either the studio itself seems to close down, or the anime was having poor sales and they felt that it wasn't worth continuing the dub. In Sailor Moon's case, there wasn't a clear reason. Sailor Moon has 5 seasons, the last being called Sailor Stars, and it never made it over here to the US. It is unclear exactly what the reason was for it not being dubbed. Some claim the studios were demanding more money than they thought was reasonable, for example. I would say the most likely cause, and again, we don't know the full story, so this is mostly my hypothesis, is that a lot of the content for Season 5 would not have been able to be shown in accordance to the cuts and edits to the show that they would have done already. But Season 5 features gender-bending, scantily and leather-clad Sailor Scouts. By Kill la Kill standards, though, it's pretty tame. One of whom is trying to pursue a relationship with Usagi, and this plot is featured enough throughout the show that it would be hard to edit around it. My guess is that the studios didn't want to have to deal with the family-friendly editing to that extent and decided to just forget it entirely. Well, whatever the reason, if an anime is left unfinished, or in iShield 21's case, barely started, then it gives an anime studio plenty of leeway to do a redub. Depending on how old the anime is, you can potentially even have some of the old cast come back. For example, Higurashi was cancelled in 2007, so it is entirely possible to get some of the original voice actors back. Was the voice work poor? Now, out of all the categories that I'll be talking about, this one is definitely the most subjective of the bunch. What one person might call a bad anime dub, another might call it their favorite dub ever. Generally, nowadays, it's really hard to find a very, very bad anime dub. At worst, it's either average, okay, or just not that great. It's really rare to find an anime dub that is so off-putting it causes people to go then watch the subtitles, or just completely abandon the anime instead. But a lot of dubs from the past weren't exactly the best when it came to voice work. Poor voice work can be attributed to a lot of things. Bad direction, miscasting, or poor scripts are just some examples of what can go wrong. Now, sometimes there are bad anime that are so bad that they're actually more loved for it, and nostalgia can play a large part in this. This often gets applied to kids-directed animes, and generally those aren't really suffering from bad voice work, as they are suffering more from bad writing or cheesy plot lines. Kids anime like Yu-Gi-Oh!, Digimon, and Pokemon all suffer from the cheesy 90s, early 2000s bad kids show writing, but for the most part, the voice acting is solid. Some of the changes that were made in these shows became well-known and enjoyed gags, like the rice balls being donuts in Pokemon, or the people going to the Shadow Realm instead of dying in Yu-Gi-Oh! These don't really qualify, at least for this category, because for the most part the voice work is solid, despite the weird writing. The Card Captors dub can have some pretty cringe-worthy moments when it comes to pronunciation. Sakura, 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 Sakura! Which is why a lot of the names in the dub were Americanized. The American dub of Saint Seiya, called Knights of the Zodiac, has some pretty decent voice actors in its cast, but the direction for the show was very poor, leading to a lot of laughably bad moments.
Diamond Dust Attack!
And for some reason, instead of using the Japanese theme, they ended up using Bowling for Soup's I Ran as the main theme. Not really sure why. Well, for me, generally, a bad dub is one where the voice actors sound unenthusiastic or bored. Even if an anime is bad, if the voice actors are trying, even if it's over the top, at least you can tell there's being effort put into it. G-Gundam is one of those so bad it's kind of good cases. Its voice work varies from overly enthusiastic to somewhat stilted and wooden, sometimes with the same character in the same scene. But then, here we have an example of Domon's speech.
This hand of mine glows with an awesome power! Its burning grip tells me to defeat you! Take this! My love, my anger, and all of my sorrow!
The corniness of the dub is kind of at odds with the dark and brooding atmosphere the anime tries to depict, and it's unintentionally hilarious. Do I think G-Gundam should be redubbed? Well, I personally enjoy the silliness of the original dub, but I can understand if it was to be redubbed. In some cases, there are anime with multiple seasons, movies, or OVAs that end up having separate English voice casts depending on which studios license the different products. For example, Sayuki's first season in the movie was licensed by ADV Films, while its second and third season were licensed by Geneon, bringing in a brand new voice cast. Now in this case, while I'm not a big fan of the new voice cast, it's a solid dub and manages to do a decent job. Do I think Season 2 and Season 3 should have been re-released with the actors from Season 1? Hell yeah, but that's mostly just my personal opinion. One example that I think does deserve a redub from its original cast is the Yu Yu Hakusho movie Poltergeist Report. For some reason, Funimation didn't get a hold of the rights to this movie, and the English voice work is terrible! Performances are stupidly melodramatic or horribly unenthusiastic. Pronunciations of established character names are all over the place.
I, the mighty Kazuma Kuwahara, shall resolve everything.
And overall, the voice actors are not a good fit for the majority of the characters. The majority of the original cast are still working for Funimation, and I don't think it would be that hard to bring them back for a redub. As I said earlier, this is a really subjective category because people's tastes in anime vary from anime to anime. If it's only an issue of the voice work being bad, then it's kind of a to each their own sort of situation. For me in particular, I would recommend either Poltergeist Report or Saint Seiya as examples of anime that didn't really have a good voice cast that I think do deserve a redub. Will it make money? Now, at the end of the day, an anime studio is a business. Even if an anime was heavily altered or cut, wasn't finished, or has a really bad voice cast, if the company doesn't feel confident that this anime is going to make them money, they're not going to put it out there. In the case of Sailor Moon, it suffered from all three of these problems. Episodes were heavily altered, an entire season was missing, and its dub was not great. But Sailor Moon is something that has still remained popular to this day, and it makes sense that Viz Media would agree to redubbing the original. Not only does it have a huge following already that would be banking on nostalgia, but it is something that they can easily market to a younger generation of anime viewers and expect a high view count. So, if anime companies were to consider redubbing other anime like they did with Sailor Moon, one of the biggest questions they will face when making these kinds of decisions are, what kind of profit is this going to make for us? More obscure animes are going to have a harder time with this because then it's up to the company to decide, is this worth the risk? So, when thinking about animes to get redubbed, you have to keep this in mind. Conclusions. So yeah, there are a lot of anime out there with bad dubs that I think do have the possibility of being redubbed, but generally they need to fall into one of the four categories that I talked about. Some categories are much easier to notice, namely if a portion of episodes are missing or if a lot of the anime has been changed significantly. Others are much more subjective, such as the quality of the voice acting or the possibility of making a profit. Those aren't as easy to pinpoint. Hopefully, with Sailor Moon being as profitable as it is already, other shows might follow suit with dub companies picking up more anime for redubbing. I've already talked about shows like Cardcaptor Sakura, Vision of Escaflowne, Higurashi no Nakukoroni, and a multitude of others that I think do deserve another go at it. I've only mentioned a few of them here though, but I know that there are other anime out there that are a considerable choice for a redub. Post in the comments below and tell me what anime dubs you think do deserve a redub. I'm curious to see if there's any common answers in the comments. That's all for this week. I'm Calluna, and thanks for tuning in to Screenshots. See ya!